most comfortable weight, maintain it with little to no effort, and never diet again? If that's a yes, then this podcast is for you. Welcome to The Perfect Gauge. I'm your host, Caroline Trickey, dietitian and eating psychology coach, and thank you so much for joining me. So last week we discussed the fear of being hungry, since it really is the most common thing I see that gets in the way of people listening to their perfect gauge. And today I want to discuss something else that has people really confused about their body signals, in particular their hunger, and that is nighttime eating. So what actually prompted this podcast is an email I got from a lovely listener who wrote to me asking for help with this. And here's what she said. Hi Caroline, I'm really enjoying the podcast and have learned a lot. I realize I'm able to listen to my perfect gauge during the day. I'm eating when I'm hungry, eating what my body wants, and stopping when I've had enough. But at night time, I really struggle. I come home, eat dinner, and then find myself rummaging in the cupboards looking for things to eat. I've tried to work out if I'm hungry, and sometimes I think I might be, but most of the time I know I'm not. I'm not eating a lot, usually just a few biscuits or a bowl of ice cream, and I'm not putting on weight yet. But I've just turned 40 and I'm worried that if I continue on this way that I will end up gaining weight. Plus I already have a couple of kilos I'd like to lose. What can you advise for this? So first of all, I want to say thank you so much for this question, because nighttime eating is a really common issue that so many of my clients ask me about. Like this listener, they find it easier to eat well during the day, but then as the day goes on and they start to get really tired, it's not as easy. Plus, they get these cravings to eat at night and they just don't know what to do. So first of all, there are many reasons why you can be wanting to eat at night. And without being able to ask the listener more questions to be more targeted about what's going on for her specifically, I'm going to talk more broadly about what drives nighttime eating. So let's first of all start with whether this could actually be hunger, which most of the time we discover it's not, but it's really important to start here and check this first. So the listener mentioned that during the day she's eating when she's hungry and stopping when she's had enough, but she didn't mention what she's eating, and if you undereat during the day, this can definitely trigger nighttime eating. And since she said she's wanting to lose weight, there could be a bit of that going on. So what we need to look at here is what's in her meals and whether they're balanced. Now, while I definitely subscribe to getting you to eat what you want, if your meals aren't balanced, then that can actually drive hunger. So what do I mean by balanced meals? Well, first of all, it's about making sure that there's both protein and carbs in them. And yes, I did say carbs. Because what I'm seeing so often these days is that people are avoiding carbs. And I believe that's because we're all very confused about what carbs are and what they do. In fact, everyone seems so scared of carbs these days, but carbohydrate foods aren't the enemy. The main thing here is to know that not all carbs are the same. So there's what we call high GI carbs like white bread and lollipops, and then there's low GI carbs like sourdough bread and lentils. And the main thing you need to know is that you want to eat those low GI carbs because they're broken down more slowly in your body, which means they keep you full for longer and they're the best way to fuel yourself throughout the day. So what most people don't realize is that carbs are the preferred fuel source for your body. So it's a bit like putting petrol in your car to help it run, if it runs on petrol, of course. But your body definitely runs on carbs. So the human body's main fuel source is actually glucose, which is what we break carbohydrates down into. So if you don't eat carbs, your poor body has to find other ways to keep the energy flowing. And while it can break down protein and convert it into glucose, which then enters the bloodstream and provides energy in the same way that carbs would, it actually prefers not to do this. So using protein for energy is not your body's first choice of fuel. It much prefers carbs. So give it carbohydrate. but those low GI, slow fueling carbs. And of course, you don't have to eat bucket loads of them either, just enough so that your body gets the fuel it wants and needs. And doing this can help curb the cravings to eat at night if they're happening because your body has been running on limited fuel all day long. What I often see is that people are eating only protein at breakfast or just protein and salad at lunch and skipping the carbs. And while they may feel full or satisfied in the moment, it's unlikely to keep them satisfied all day long. And then that's what's causing them to get hungry at night. So after dinner, what happens is your body's trying to play catch up. It's wanting you to eat to make up for what it missed out on earlier in the day. So always making sure that your meals have both carbs and protein in them means that your body will have the carbs it needs to fuel you during the day while it's using that fuel, and it'll have protein along with the carbs, which helps to keep you full for longer. So protein's kind of like, think about putting the brakes on the rate at which your body breaks down carbs when you've got protein in there. So that's why protein together with carbs is like the best combination. So that's the first thing to look at. Make sure that you're getting a balance of carbs and protein. And then for lunch and dinner, you also want to make sure that you have plenty of veggies or salad and some healthy fat, like my favorite one, extra virgin olive oil. So for lunch and dinner, you're looking at roughly 25% of your plate each for carbs and protein. And then the other 50%-ish of the plate would ideally be your veggies or salad, along with some extra virgin olive oil because it tastes delicious and there's a ton of research highlighting its health benefits. So if you're missing out on any of the components of a balanced meal, so whether that's carbs or protein or veggies for lunch and dinner, it can cause you to feel hungry and then want to eat at night. So I think that pretty much covers it for making sure that nighttime eating isn't actually due to hunger buildup during your day. So then now we're going to move into the territory of what's usually going on when it comes to nighttime eating. So if you're not hungry, you're eating to manage your emotions, to manage how you feel, or you're eating out of habit, or potentially both. So what normally happens is that emotional eating starts off as a way to manage uncomfortable feelings. So you may be going through a particularly stressful time in your life or at work, or you're feeling anxious or frustrated, or you could just be feeling bored or lonely. And eating provides a temporary relief, some comfort, or it's a distraction. And it can start off quite small, like a few biscuits or a small bowl of ice cream or a bit of chocolate. But the thing is, if you do this often over time, this pattern will actually turn into a habit. So then your brain starts associating certain feelings with food, and before you know it, you're automatically reaching for something to eat whenever those feelings arise. And because habits form through repetition, the more you do it, the stronger that habit becomes. And then over time, you can find you're actually doing it every night. And it's not necessarily due to making you feel better anymore, but simply because it's now a habit. So the thing is, often we don't realize that this is what's happening because we don't know how we feel. We're so busy rushing through the day that we don't even realize how we truly feel. From the moment we wake up, it's go, go, go. Work, other tasks, family commitments, other responsibilities. It's a non-stop whirlwind for so many women these days. Then you finally get home, make or grab something for dinner and sit down to relax for a moment, and next thing you know, you've got a craving to eat. And it's not because you're hungry, but because your body and mind are looking for a way to unwind, to soothe the stress that's been building up all day long, to decompress after a long day. So your body's actually seeking comfort. And if you think about it, food is a really smart and easy go-to because it's always there. It never talks back. It doesn't say no, and it usually tastes delicious. And who or what else do you know does that? So that's why food has become the most popular way to cope with stress and pressure of modern day life. So it's how we relieve or release some of that mental pressure. And while it may not solve what's actually happening in our lives, it keeps us feeling a bit calmer in the moment, kind of like a weight has been lifted. And this is why I tell my clients that food or eating isn't a problem, it's actually a solution. And it's the only one you're aware of or that's available to you in that moment. So the problem is, as I already mentioned, of course, it doesn't solve the actual problem. So afterwards, the food is gone and the problem is still there. But also when you do this and do this often, it becomes a habit. So most of us end up eating out of habit rather than choice. And sometimes we might feel like there's no way to change what we're doing because we've kind of trained ourselves like Pavlovian dogs. So we sit down to relax and it's kind of like a bell goes off in our head saying, oh, we should get something to eat. And so then you eat, and it becomes a very ingrained habit. So getting back to the listener's question, I'd suggest if you're eating balanced meals and you know it's definitely not hunger, then you want to check if it's emotional eating or if you're eating out of habit. And to see if it's emotional eating, the best way to do that is to try and tune in and do your best to notice how you're feeling at the end of the day. And to see if eating is simply a coping mechanism to help you manage feelings like frustration or boredom or whatever other ways you may be feeling. And see if you can locate what in your life is happening that you're not happy about, and so what's causing you to feel that way. So think of your mind a bit like a pressure cooker. The thoughts and feelings inside are like the contents inside the pressure cooker, building up more and more pressure. And pressure cookers have a valve on the top that releases steam. So when you open the valve, the pressure escapes with a loud sort of whooshy noise, which immediately brings the pressure down. So emotional eating kind of acts like that valve. Eating is just how your body helps you cope with stress, how it finds relief. And that craving you feel, it's your mind's way of telling you that things are building up inside and it's time to release some of that steam. And if you still have an urge to eat, don't tell yourself that you can't have whatever it is you're craving, because the minute you tell yourself you can't have the food, then the food becomes like forbidden fruit and you'll want it all the more. So you can absolutely still eat at night. I'm not suggesting that you don't do that while you're trying to sort out what's going on, but also be aware that eating allows you to let off some steam, but it's not addressing the actual problem. And then if you've checked that your eating isn't due to hunger and you're pretty sure it's not due to emotions, if you think it's actually a habit that you've formed, then tune in next week when I'm going to share with you my 2-step approach to stop emotional eating in its tracks. So that's what I have for you this week. I hope you found that super helpful, and I hope you join me next week. And as always, if you want to learn more or get in touch, you'll find a link in the show notes. And if you're enjoying this podcast, please take a moment to subscribe and leave a review on whatever platform you're listening to this on. It will really help other women find the podcast, and I'd be eternally grateful for you doing so. And also, if you haven't already, make sure to sign up to my 5-day Eat Consciously free challenge on my website, Caroline Trickey, that's tricky with an EY.com. Then don't forget to join me next week. I really look forward to speaking with you then. Thanks so much, and bye for now.